there are some meal prep lunches where I'm like, yeah, that'll taste good this week. And then there are some lunches where I cannot wait to dive in. And for me, this recipe is in that latter category. These chicken fajita bowls with that green salsa crema over the top are super tasty, and they're only 451 calories per serving. So let's jump into how to make it. Alright, so for the procedure today, it'll be marinade, rice, chicken, sauce, veggies, and then we'll prep everything in the end here. The first thing we'll make is our chicken marinade. I'm using 765 grams of chicken breast here, which I'll just hit with some lime zest, and then we'll add the juice of that whole lime as well. With that microplane, I'm going to also grate in a garlic clove, or you can finely dice it if you want. Next, I'm going to add chipotles and adobo sauce here. I'm using 2 chipotles, but if you want it spicier, just use more, obviously. And then we'll also add in 2 tablespoons of the adobo sauce here as well. For a little sweetness, I'm going to add half a teaspoon of honey. And then lastly, we'll hit this chicken with some salt, black pepper, and then some ground cumin before mixing everything together. We'll let this marinate for however long you have, the longer the better, obviously. But I just let mine sit for about an hour or so. Moving on to our rice here, we're going to make it Mexican style today. I'm using 240 grams of white long grain rice here, which I'm going to season very simply with half a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and then half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And I wanted to add some chili powder too, but your boy didn't have any, so what I decided to do was take some of this leftover adobo sauce and add roughly 2 tablespoons or so to it. We'll let this rice toast for a second, and then we'll cover it with 480 grams of chicken stock or water, whatever you have available. And I didn't have diced tomatoes, otherwise I would have added them to this mix as well, so that's something you can add if you wanted. While that's cooking, we can prep our veggies off to the side here, which will simply be onions and peppers. For the onions, I'm going to slice 330 grams, and like you see here, I'm obviously not dicing them, but if you don't want to follow tradition, you can cut them up however you want. It doesn't matter to me, and it all tastes the same in the end anyways. And then for the bell peppers, it's the same thing. I ended up cutting 500 grams here, but it wouldn't hurt if you wanted to add equal parts bell pepper and onion instead. And also you can use equal parts between each bell pepper color too. There is a slight taste difference between each one, but I would just say we use whatever you have available. Don't stress if you don't have each color. It's not that material to the dish's flavor. With that done and what looks to be like fully cooked rice here, we'll add a few final touches. I'm going to add in a pinch of salt to the rice, and then I'm going to squeeze a lime wedge over the top as well. We'll mix that together, and then finally we'll add 3 tablespoons or so of chopped cilantro, or however much you want, before giving this a final mix and setting it off to the side. Alright, so onto our chicken here. I've got an oiled skillet set over medium-high heat here, and you can err being on the higher side. I just want to get some color on the chicken's exterior. Here I'm not looking to cook it entirely. I'm going to finish it in the oven. And I should have done this in a cast iron to help with this process, but either way, just keep flipping the chicken back and forth and try to get as much color as you can on both sides. And once we're there, I'm going to put this in a 450 degree oven, Fahrenheit that is, to let the chicken finish cooking. While that's cooking, we'll make 2 very quick things here. The first is a little green salsa crema. To a mixing bowl, I'm going to add 100 grams of light sour cream, which I'll follow up with about 75 grams of green salsa or tomatillo salsa. I'm using a salsa that my family member made, which is fantastic, so I'm sorry this isn't store available for you guys, but any from the store will work. We'll also hit this with a squeeze of lime over the top, and then hit this with some salt before I almost forget. Now we'll give this a good mix, taste it to make sure it's good, and yeah, hell yeah, it's good. Okay, cool. Next we'll make an optional Pico de Gallo, and it is optional, you certainly don't have to add this. Very simply, we'll dice up 1 Roma tomato, seeds and all here. Then we'll very finely, and I mean very finely, dice up about 10 grams of jalapeno, which will follow up with about 45 grams or so of finely diced red onion, or however much you want. We'll hit that with the lime wedge too, and some salt. And before I almost forget, about 2 tablespoons of chopped cilantro as well. Now we can mix this all together and set it off to the side with our crema. Getting back to our chicken, here's what we have once it's done, and Jesus Christ, that looks good. Alright, so just get it onto a cutting board here. I'm actually going to take some of these residual liquids and spoon those over the top for some extra flavor while it's resting, but this is optional, you don't have to do this. Then we'll set this off to the side as well. I'm going to rinse out some of these loose liquids in the pan, but I don't mind if it's still charred, which you can see here. As our veggies cook and release their liquid, this will help loosen up some of that fond for us. I'm seasoning my veggies with a pinch of salt and some cumin, but you can use whatever seasonings you want here if you wanted to be more creative. But the process is straightforward. We'll just let these cook until they're soft and caramelized, and I'm cooking mine on about medium heat or so. But once they're pretty much done, you can turn off the heat and set it off to the side. And then I'm just going to cut up my chicken here. You can dice it if you want. I'm going with slightly longer strips to keep the fajita style here, but at the end of the day, it needs to be in bite-sized form anyway, so do whatever is easiest for you and whatever makes the meal prepping process easier. And once we're done, I'm just going to add it to the pan with my vegetables. You can keep them separate if you're measuring everything individually, but I'm not worried about it because I'm going to be consuming everything anyways. And it's just easier for meal prepping just to consolidate everything. So let's prep our lunches. We'll hit half of our bowls with our rice first, obviously. And then we'll add in our chicken fajitas and the veggies next into the other half of the bowl. After that, I'm going to add in some of this tasty green salsa crema over the top of each one. Then lastly, we'll top each of these off with some of that pico, which again is optional. But needless to say, it's lunches like these that get me pumped up. Like, look how good that looks. So try it out for yourself and let me know what you think, but I think they're flippin' tasty. Here's the usual recipe and ingredient list. And for the crema, again, we used 150 grams, which is slightly less than the total amount we made, but you can use a little bit more, a little bit less. It wouldn't make too much of a difference. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll be back with more, so stay tuned.